Kia ora, everybody. We're going to be looking today at Achievement Standard 1.2, which is worth 4 credits, another 4 credits. And what you're doing for this is writing a report on the 1960s. Now, a report is different from an essay. A report can have pictures, charts, diagrams. A report can have headings and subheadings. So it's more than just writing an essay on what you've learned. You're going to be using your research on your topic, so the space race, the Cold War, the music revolution, and you're going to be putting that in a series of maximum 10 paragraphs. On OneNote, we've got 1.2 internal here and instructions. Here are the written instructions. This is due on the 18th of the 5th. So if we look at today's date being the 4th, it's due in 2 weeks, Monday. So you have less time to do this than you did for your research, and it's something that you should not leave till later. You need to get onto this now. I'm going to want to see, because we're typing this in OneNote, I'm going to do my first check of your work this coming Friday. So I need to be able to see progress has been made this Friday. Let's look at what we have to do. Here's a checklist. The top section is for your paragraphs. Now the second section here is about a timeline that you have to make. So there's 2 parts to this. You write 6 to 10 paragraphs on the space race, or on the music revolution, or on the Cold War, and then you create a timeline. I'm going to show you how to do that. Now your report needs to have a title, headings, and subheadings. It needs to have 6 to 10 paragraphs, minimum of 6. Now, in those paragraphs, you're going to have an introduction and a conclusion. So if you're thinking about writing the minimum, introduction, conclusion, and then 4 events from your decade. Now, for example, the space race, introduction, and then you might do the first satellite in space, the first man in space, the first orbit of the moon, the Apollo moon landings, and then your conclusion. That's 6 paragraphs. You note that each paragraph is its own different topic. If you're doing the violent decade, you might start with your introduction and then write about the JFK assassination, 63. Write about Martin Luther King being assassinated. Write about Malcolm X being assassinated. Write about the Vietnam War. Conclusion, 6 paragraphs. Each paragraph is its own unique event. We're looking at a word count here of 600 to 750 words, and we're going to need a chronological coverage of the 1960s. So don't just choose all your events from 1968. It's important that one of your events is a New Zealand topic. But because we did that in our research, that shouldn't be a problem. Quotations. So they can be quotations from the people you interviewed or quotations from your sources. And a quotation is when you have a word for word with quotation marks like that. Historical conventions, for example, writing chronologically. And then at the end, we're going to need to have a bibliography or a reference list. But if we go to here, you've already got that because you did this here. So what you can do is you can just copy paste your bibliography from your research. You can do a screenshot of that and just drop it onto your 1.2. So there's no problem with that. All of this is your report, your writing. This is checklist. So when you go down and complete, you can tick these off. On this page here, I have some examples of what good writing looks like. So this is a paragraph on the music revolution. There are strengths in this, but there's also weaknesses. This is something you would need to read. Here is a better one on the space race, and here's some strengths within this paragraph. And then this is an introduction. This is going to be your first paragraph, and this is an example of what that should look like. It has strengths and weaknesses. read this. Exemplars are important. Now, if I go back here to your checklist, not only are you writing a report, you're also creating a timeline. So what you need for your timeline is 10 events or features. The events need to cover the decade from 1960 to 69. You need at least 5 pictures on your timeline. And for every event, you need to have a brief caption explaining what happened during that event. If I flick to here, there's timeline exemplars. This is what you're creating. On its own page, you've got at least 10 events. You've got a picture for each event and a brief caption. Something that's good about this is you notice it spans from 1960 and advances chronologically, as a timeline should, all the way up to 1969. Here's another one. This has more events, and in some years it's got multiple events. So here are 3 events from the year 1960. You can do that as long as there's an even spread from 1960 up to 1968. So that's another example of how it's done. I've given you guys a good website here called Visme. So if you click Visme, it'll take you to this. You just need to create an account, create a new project, and then type timeline in here. And this will come up with a whole bunch of custom editable timelines. Some of them are premium, you can't use those. But go back to the freebies over here, COVID-19 timeline, and we're going to edit that. We can change that out. You can swap out the dates, swap out the content, swap out the pictures, and make this one unique to your topic. You can change direction of the diagrams, add graphics, text. You guys can click around and have a play with that. You'll figure it out. The download button is up there, and you can download it as a JPEG, and then you save that, drop it into your OneNote. Everything, your report and your timeline goes here. Write your article here. 6 to 10 paragraphs, followed by, down the bottom, your timeline. If you've got any questions, let me know. Don't leave it till last minute to get this done or even started. It's not much. I think you probably wrote this much for your CATs in year 10. So, good luck. Give me a yell if you get stuck. And it's really not a big deal if you have done your research and you know what's going on with the 1960s project.